latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Hi everyone, it's Chief Tom Weitzel. I wanted to just let you know about some of the worst police leadership I've seen in a long time. So the police chief in Detroit, Michigan has announced that he has suspended 2 of his officers and is going to be seeking termination because they cooperated with or contacted Customs and Border Patrol. They had a individual stopped on a felony warrant. They thought this individual was in the country illegally. The officer contacted Customs Border Patrol. And then there was a sergeant called to the scene only to do translation because the individual they had stopped only spoke Spanish. Now he's going to fire them. At least that's what he's announced. They are suspended with pay right now, but this is absurd. Who in their right mind would want to work for Detroit PD or this chief? They did a lawful act. You need to stand up. You're acting as a politician, not a chief.
That was the voice of retired Chief of Police Riverside and Fellow of Law Enforcement with Awake Illinois. I love that new partnership. Thomas Weitzel. Thomas, welcome back to Chicago's Morning Answer. Or Tom, I should say.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for having me, and I appreciate it.
Now, I made a post about this a couple of weeks ago. What does it mean to assist ICE or to assist Border Patrol? Because I do recall that there were moments like when you look at what happened to ICE in Chicago when they were being run off the road and CPD was told to stand down. Chief, when did policing get to the point where just simply sending somebody to interpret something is considered a violation of the sanctuary law?
We got here under the previous administration, and then we're here because the local politicians, whether they be mayors, village presidents, city managers, have instituted either these welcoming ordinances or sanctuary city ordinances. But I totally disagree with what's happening in Detroit. I don't believe that even applies. In fact, the paperwork I saw to seeking the termination of those 2 officers, one being a sergeant, is saying they cooperated with ICE, which they didn't. It was the Border Patrol. I mean, get your facts right to begin with. And second of all, one incident, the individual was wanted on a felony warrant, and the other one they just called for translation. They didn't actively go out assisting Border Patrol on hunting down illegals or even individuals that had detainers. They only were asking for assistance from them with translation, and then the other case, the felony warrant, and the individual was in the country illegally, and both were true. So my estimation, they're doing their job. So if those officers are terminated, and I don't know if you read yesterday that the sergeant has filed a lawsuit already. Good. and an injunction to prevent the chief from terminating her. And I think that's going to fly. I would sue for unlawful termination immediately. They did their job.
Yeah. Chief, where does the collective bargaining come in? When they went for the collective bargaining agreement, was this language that they couldn't assist ICE and this type of law enforcement within the collective bargaining agreement? Because if it's not, how can they be held accountable?
No, it's not. I haven't seen their union or their representation really come out defending the officers yet, at least aggressively. And I read that it's a city or Detroit's ordinance or welcoming ordinance, like Chicago has in many other Illinois communities, that it's not written into their collective bargaining contract. And even the ordinance for the city says actively assisting ICE. They weren't actively assisting, in this case, United States Border Patrol. It's just a lie.
Yeah. And that's why in the post that I made, I said that I believe these sanctuary cities have to now define what it means to actively assist. Because if I'm on patrol, let's say I'm on patrol, I'm back in policing, I'm on patrol, and ICE is out there, and I see somebody hit ICE, it's my duty that I swore to the Constitution of the state of Illinois and the Constitution of the United States of America that if I saw a crime occur in front of me, that's my duty as a sworn law enforcement officer to stop what I see happening right in front of me, correct? So they're saying that these officers can't do this now?
Absolutely. If you don't, you'd probably be written up for, failure to do your duty, right?
Yeah.
That is, and remember, a lot of these activists and politicians that say we're not going to honor these detainers or these final orders of deportation. We want warrants. Well, one of these individuals had an active felony warrant, so you met that criteria.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about that. And the other one is they called for translation. Are you kidding me? You want to terminate, in this case, a sergeant for calling for translation? And I saw the chief said, well, we had a translation service available that you could call on the phone. Well, you know what? So did I. When I was chief in Riverside, so do we. And you know what? Those translation services suck. They don't work when you're out on the street. They don't work when you have somebody stopped on the road. They work when somebody's in custody in your lockup, maybe.
Yeah.
But this is a situation that took place on the street.
Now, Chief, you served 37 years in law enforcement. I believe 13 years as chief. Were you chief when prior to sanctuary state laws?
Yeah, I was chief during it. Yes.
So, what was the process? Let's say, were you chief during Barack Obama as president?
Yes.
Okay, what was that process when you guys found somebody that got into your custody who was wanted on an ICE, who had a 200, and ICE showed up with a Form 200 or Form 205? Did you guys honor just simply the Forms 200 and 205 at that time while President Obama was president?
We did not, and this is how it worked. We had a welcoming type ordinance too, and there were times that we would arrest somebody for whatever retail theft. Let's use that as an example. Their fingerprints cleared. We immediately got a fax back then. It might be an email. Now you get a fax that came in that says we have a detainer on this individual, or we have a final deportation order. They would both come through. Please hold them for 72 hours. If he or she's going to bond out at your facility, contact us. We'll have Customs or ICE pick them up at your facility. And we did not do that back then. We were under threat of intimidation and threat of you'd be fired or your officers would be fired or you would violate that. So they would go after you. They would, they would open up an investigation and try to terminate that. I never was for that, ever, ever, ever. We didn't run across it all that often, but, communities that make a lot of arrests or have malls or have large entertainment district or warehousing, they run across it all the time, John.
Yeah. So, Chief, if you had to advise President Trump on what a clean process would look like as it relates to the holds and working with the courts, working with the jails to bring these people so that the fight doesn't go to the street, what process would you lay out?
I could tell you without a doubt, 95% of these confrontations between either of people wanted on detainers or, activists that want to throw bottles and chuck bricks at the police. If you would allow ICE to pick up individuals wanted on detainers at lockups, at state prisons, at holding facilities when they are going to be released after your local charges, there would be no confrontation, John. None.
When you look at, I'm sure you've seen a lot. You've seen what happened with Good, with Pretty. You see a lot of these people, these so-called protesters. I don't have a problem with the whole whistle thing. I really don't. But when you see how these things play out, what would you tell your officers? Would you have them go out especially when they're blocking the roadways and things of that nature? Would you have your officers out there bringing a stop to that? Because technically that wouldn't be assisting ICE. That would be assisting the people of Riverside, correct?
Correct. And, what I would do is I would have to pay attention until this stupid sanctuary city laws or ordinances or welcoming ordinances are rescinded. But I would not have my officers actively looking for individuals wanted by ICE. But if we came across a situation on the street that ICE or Border Patrol were under attack, or they were being pelted with things, or there was this large chaotic disturbance? Absolutely. You are required to help.
Yeah.
You are required because, you're helping the residents you serve. You're helping what's going on with the people in your town. It's all these outsiders that want to make us think, oh, why did your officers do this? Why? Hey, listen, you don't live here. We were helping the people that we're paid to help. My officers are to protect the residents here, and this action we took helped do that.
Chief, I don't know if you saw that video on 13th and Holman where the police officers, they were trying to detain this individual and his friends intervened and was trying to, they were pushing on the officers. I think it was a former Chicago cop. I was sitting in with Amy who called in and he basically said, where was the baton? Where was the ASP? Why didn't they deploy? To his credit, he was saying he wasn't trying to Monday morning quarterback because you know how easy that can be. But why are police departments across this nation? It appears to me that they can't be police officers and maintain the peace in their communities because first of all, they're afraid of losing their pensions. They're afraid of becoming the next poster person poster man for a lot of this anti-police, defund the police things, and you know what happens. How do we solve this?
We have to allow the police to be the police and to do their job and do it lawfully. And they already do that with, compassion and professionalism. But make no doubt, police officers are holding back. They're not doing proactive policing. And I'm saying that, just look at the Detroit. If you don't think this is making a statement, if those officers are terminated and that was to be upheld, for example, that will be known nationwide. Every single police officer will know these officers were fired for allegedly, assisting ICE or Border Patrol in an unlawful way, which is not true. But they're sending a message. And the governor here in Illinois, he made a statement in 2025 that if police officers or sheriff's deputies are found to be cooperating with the federal government, Border Patrol, ICE, his administration would do everything possible to see that there was a thorough investigation and it was handled correctly. That just means we're going after you.
And you know what, Chief? I'm calling on anybody who has the wherewithal, the money to challenge, because sanctuary laws as a whole has never been challenged on the constitutional base to determine if it's unconstitutional as a whole. It's only been bits and pieces of challenging the sanctuary laws. I really do hope that and I hope maybe this is the case, I don't know, but I really do hope there's a case where, because you and I both know, in order to understand what's lawful and not, sometimes in policing, the courts have to decide this. So if I'm still in policing, Chief, I'm not going to lie to you. I would engage. I will be willing to lose that job and engage to protect the people of Kendall County, where I was a sheriff's deputy at, and deal with the consequences and come what may. Do you think it's time for somebody to actually go out and make that challenge to it, to determine and let it reach all the way to the Supreme Court, if some rich backer can help push that through?
Yeah, without a doubt, we need that, or the Trump administration needs to have the U.S. Department of the state, the Attorney General, or someone file a lawsuit and say that these are just going, like we mentioned earlier, the time when Chicago went and was pulled back from helping ICE and Border Patrol in what was actually a chaotic riot situation. Initially, they were pulled back. We have to define that's not a violation of the sanctuary city or welcoming ordinances. That assisting officers being battered, injured, attacked
Correct.
does not violate that. We need that to be stated.
Yes. I'm just looking at somebody's posting on YouTube. Anti-ICE agitator steals ambulance from hospital, packs it with gas cans, rams it into the DH office building in Idaho. This is what we're dealing with. This is what is before us as a nation. What do we need to do? I mean, Chief, what's happening to the men and women that serve in our police departments, it's a travesty. And I see that you're working with Awake Illinois. I really do hope that you could, and I love Shannon. Shannon Adcock is one of the greatest people. She gets a bad rap, but that woman loves this state, and she loves to see kids protected. I do know that about her. I did a lot of work with her during the COVID. What's that part? How did that partnership come about?
Well, they reached out to me because they had seen what I've been doing for trying to really push our profession forward, and specifically the chief's position and legislative possibly, and asked me if I would consider being a fellow for their organization, the first ever to be fellow of law enforcement. And my area of expertise would be law enforcement. Yeah. That's what they wanted me to stay in my own lane. They wanted somebody that could advise them on legislation, on good, poor legislation, could write for their their blog posts, could put information out that's factual and counter this narrative that the police are the enemy. And somehow we've become this disease that most Americans don't want. And John, you and me both know that's a lie and not the truth. We just need to get our message out better. And we also need police chiefs and sheriffs to stand up.
I agree. Chief, where can people follow you? I know you have a Substack. I know you're very active on Twitter or X.
Yeah, so I'm on X at Chief Weitzel, so at Chief Weitzel, and I'm on TikTok. You can just Google me, find me on TikTok. I do have my own publication called The Memo on Substack that I write, and I do write for Awake Illinois. I do a monthly op-ed piece. It's called Chief Weitzel's Dispatch. They can go to Awake Illinois' website, and they can find me there. It's just stuff that is common sense things that we need to do. And one thing I'm going to be tackling in the very near future is I'm going to be part of a group that is going to make recommendations to the governor and his staff on changes for the Safety Act.
Yeah, that we definitely need that. One more final question. Is ICE, Border Patrol, are they law enforcement?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Of course they are. There's this narrative being pushed by all the anti-ICE and Border Patrol that they are not law enforcement. And to be clear, what they're saying is they're not local law enforcement. You're right. They're federal law enforcement. They have full arrest powers. They operate as law enforcement, have the same, if not better, training at times. Yes, John, they are law enforcement officers.
Okay, I lied. That wasn't the final question because I saw something that you posted about the Cook County State's Attorney looking to bring charges against ICE agents. We know it. You and I both know that has been tried. But if they're acting in their official capacity and something happens, there's sort of a protection there, correct? And this has been tried before. Do you think this? She does it? Will she do it? And do you think a conviction would happen?
No, it's completely political. I do think her memorandum or her policy to her staff is well written and actually is on point, but they have no authority to do that. They have no authority to arrest federal agents, period. Right. It could be the FBI, the Secret Service, it could be U.S. Marshals. They do not have authority. They can collect information and get statements if they wanted to, and they could turn it over to the United States Attorney's Office. Yeah. But they themselves do not have the authority to prosecute federal law enforcement officers.
Well, I think there needs to be a bandying about of police unions throughout this state to come together and make a collective call to say that all of this nonsense about us not assisting ICE, and not that we're going out on raids with them trying to pick people up, but the what assistance needs to be defined across this country. Specifically where there are sanctuary state laws and city laws and county laws, in my opinion, Chief.
Yeah, our unions and leadership needs to think about protecting who they're serving. And, it seems like it only makes it different when it affects you personally. But, when you're in a police leadership position, your job is beyond you. And it's even beyond your immediate department members. It's the community that you serve. So remember that. I mean, history is going to show that we're right. And I mean that. Yeah. It's going to show that we're correct, that these narrative out there that is so anti-federal government policing and local policing is not the right side to be on.
Yeah, and you and I both know that there are bad policing out there. I've called bad policing out. I know you probably have had your fair share of having to fire some that some would call bad apples. So as it relates to bad policing, good cops hate bad police, correct?
Without a doubt, good cops hate bad cops, and you're right. Do your job. If you're the leader, if you got to terminate somebody for cause, and they did something that's egregious, absolutely, that's the way to build credibility. But not not politically motivated assassinations against police officers' careers.
And that has happened time and time again. I don't know where you stand, but I still, to this day, and I don't care what anybody says, Chauvin did not kill George Floyd. Was he a part of it, contributed to it? Maybe, but he did not kill George Floyd. That's just my opinion. May not be the opinion of the chief, former chief of Riverside, but it's where I stand.
Yeah, but I stand with law enforcement, and I know that most of the citizens of Illinois, if not the United States, they do. They're just being drowned out, so it's time for that to change.
All right, he's the retired chief of police of Riverside, and he's a fellow of law enforcement with Awake, Illinois. My girl, Shannon Adcock. Chief Weitzel, thanks so much for joining us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Thanks for having me, John. Have a great morning.
You too. We'll be right back.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hey, it's Mike Gallagher, hoping you'll join me on the unforgettable Gulf of America cruise happening in November of 2026. Imagine this: turquoise waters, white sand beaches, incredible food,